After gaining independence in 1943, Lebanon's new political leaders created a system of governance that would allow for the proportional representation of the country's three major religious groups: Maronite Christians, represented by the president; Shiite Muslims, represented by the Speaker of Parliament; and Sunni Muslims, represented by the Prime Minister. However, unresolved sectarian differences eventually devolved into a civil war that lasted from 1975 to 1990, in which both Israeli and Syrian forces intervened and more than 100,000 people died. Syrian forces withdrew from Lebanon in 2005, following the assassination of Lebanese Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri, but a war between Israel and Hezbollah quickly followed in 2006. Since these hostilities, sectarian tensions between Hezbollah and other religious sects have increased, particularly among Sunnis and Maronite Christians. The unique balance of power within the country has made it increasingly difficult for all stakeholders to come to political agreements, especially when it comes to filling the presidency. In addition to a 2.5-year leadership gap from 2014 to 2016, Lebanon is currently without a president after the conclusion of Michel Aoun's contentious term in October 2022. Furthermore, Lebanese politics has become a proxy battleground for Iran, which provides support for Hezbollah, and Saudi Arabia, which backed former Prime Minister Saad Hariri and other Sunni politicians. Lebanon's tenuous political situation can largely be attributed to political gridlock, but has also occurred because of spillover from the Syrian civil war. In addition to hosting more than 1.5 million refugees, over 800,000 of whom are Syrian, the nearly 13-year conflict in Syria has affected cross-border trade and dampened Lebanon's tourism industry. In addition to the world's third highest ratio of debt to gross domestic product, Lebanon also maintains one of the largest refugee populations per capita. Despite Lebanon's dissociation policy, Hezbollah's armed component has also been involved in the Syrian civil war and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This has exacerbated relations between Hezbollah and Israel along the shared and disputed Israel-Lebanon border and has led to increasingly hostile rhetorical exchanges between Hezbollah and Israel over Israeli airstrikes in Syria. Hezbollah has allegedly supported Syrian President Bashar al-Assad since the start of the Syrian war in 2011. In October 2019, widespread protests erupted throughout Lebanon as a result of endemic corruption and a complete stagnation of the economy. Protesters, coming from all religious sects, called for the establishment of a new political regime which did away with the sectarian divides that had plagued the country since its independence. This rare unity among the citizens resulted in the resignation of the cabinet of ministers and put into motion the reshuffling of the government. However, the COVID-19 pandemic put an effective end to any change that had been culminating. Tensions between the government and its citizens reached an all-time high once again following an explosion at the port of Beirut in August 2020, which cost an estimated $15 billion in damages and left more than 300,000 homeless. The explosion, which many attributed to years of government negligence, reignited widespread protests and saw the entire cabinet resign, with the government staying on only in a caretaker capacity. The domestic investigation into the explosion has become a highly politicized affair, as the Shia-majority political parties, Amal and Hezbollah, have moved to obstruct the investigation by shielding politicians and threatening the presiding judge. The culmination of several factors, including widespread government corruption, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the Beirut port explosion, have led to the worst financial crisis in the small country's history. After Prime Minister Najib Mikati announced that Lebanon would default on its Eurobond debt for the first time, the Lebanese currency, BEG,